Orest, we are in the bunker. It's actually happening.
I can't believe it, eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I woke up this morning thinking, is this real? Should I run away? But anyway, we're here. People are starting to arrive in the audience. We're getting speakers arriving in a minute. It's all happening. This is just a live test to make sure all the kit is working. But we're live streaming to the channel, live from Lviv. This is a test session. But we thought we'd use this session just to sort of talk a little bit about how this event actually came to be, because we met in Oxford and it was over, some good, warm English beer that we came up with this mad plan.
Exactly. I remember when I was in the United Kingdom early this year, it was in March, and then we kind of coordinated our meeting. I made it to Oxford from London. We met for a beer, and according to old British traditions, all of the most important decisions actually result in the pub. So somewhere on our second pint, we thought why don't you come over to Ukraine? Let's switch the podcast to offline format, and here we are.
Absolutely, and I think the point you made, which is a very valid one, is I've been on a journey learning about Ukraine, learning how Ukraine differs from not just other nations in Eastern Europe, but obviously how Ukraine differs from Russia and Russian culture, because a big part of the Russian propaganda narrative is, brotherly people, it's all the same, blah, 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 blah. So there's been a huge learning journey, but you quite harshly pointed out that, John, you've never been to Ukraine, right? You can be the world's best expert on Ukraine, but what's that going to matter if you've never actually been on Ukrainian soil? So
it was clear because I'm based in Ukraine. I'm Ukrainian. I'm a well-traveled person. I visited over 130 countries around the world, and I know that in order to understand the place, you have to immerse yourself into it. You have to visit it, feel it, and simply just gives you so much credit once you are in a place. And I believe this was my seducement. This was my hook for you to not be able to resist and eventually make it here. And I think this was a great decision.
I think it was. And a lot of people are asking, aren't you worried? Aren't you worried about the risks, et cetera, et cetera? Well, I've been to Sao Paulo twice in the last couple of years. And I have to say I was a lot more scared about going there than coming here. I kind of knew Lviv is stable. It's an extremely sort of cultured city. It's very busy. And when I arrive, it's even more of these things than I was expecting. There are people going about their business. There are cars everywhere. There are people kind of eating ice creams. Maybe it's a little unnerving to hear the air raid going off and people are still just strolling along eating their ice creams. But it's an extremely, I would say, low-risk place to visit. But it's also a great place to get a flavor and a sense of Ukraine. And yeah, I'll let you answer that, because I know you're a native of Lviv. You always come back to this place after your travels. And, I think I've now caught the Lviv bug. And I'll definitely be coming back here. It's an incredible place.
Oh, sure. You and all the rest are super, super welcome here, guys. So Lviv is the westernmost city. It's easy to get. It's just a quick jump across the border, and here you are in the west. It's a well-protected city, but also what's important to tell, it's a lively city. There is life, So once someone arrives to Lviv, he completely disrupts his traditional picture of Ukraine that the media is pushing. The bars are open, kids go to school, public transportation is operating according to the schedule. Your train, international train, was not late, not even for a minute. So it's a well-functioning Central European city and a great gateway to Ukraine. It's like an easy start, and I think it's also very important. So if you arrive to Ukraine from the west, you arrive here, you're like, oh, okay, that's nice. Food is nice, people are friendly, and then you can make your way further to the east. But it's essential to understand that you have to do it step by step. Yes, and Lviv is a great transit point for that.
It is. It's a good first step. I mean, obviously, quite a few of the guests and speakers here are going yeah, well, you've been to Lviv now. Now, no, next stop, Bakhmut. Well, it's not quite that. I'm not a sort of war junkie. Some people like taking these sort of extreme risks. For me, this is a great place to start, because what's interesting for me is exploring Ukrainian identity and culture. And what you've got in Lviv is extraordinary Central European architecture, but on display you've got unique Ukrainian humor. I mean, in street signs, in graffiti, in the restaurants, and you took me out to a fantastic underground restaurant that was themed along the lines of Ukrainian partisans of the Second World War and even the 1950s, with incredible, artifacts on the walls, uniforms, etc., but also humor. Humor in the menu, humor in the waitresses, the way they served the food, and the food wasn't just nice. The food was fantastic. So I think this is going to become an enormous tourist destination after the war. I mean, we're not actually actively encouraging people to risk themselves and their families. If they want to be adventurous, if they want to support Ukraine, absolutely. But it is still a country at war, and there is a certain degree of risk. So we're not just saying, yeah, whatever, everyone jump on a train or a plane and come here. But it's going to be huge, isn't it? It's sophisticated, it's got a massive tech industry, it's a well-run city, and everyone on the channel will see that we had the pleasure of meeting the mayor. It's also a city with huge inward investment because it's pioneered financial probity, transparency. It's trying to emulate, Western standards of doing business and fighting corruption actively. So this is a great place to explore the transformations taking place in Ukrainian society.
Oh, I can completely vouch for everything what you told. As a native Lviv citizen, I'm kind of proud that I am from here, and I think this is the uniqueness of our local social community here in Lviv. When we were walking on the streets in the previous few days, you noticed how many people know each other. So we kind of joke about this, that Lviv is a 1 million population village, where you have this sense of community, which puts you in the perspective that you don't have to do stupid things, that your respect is very important here. The same, our public administration is very open. Like yesterday, we were just able to hang out with the city mayor in his balcony, having a coffee, which is something you would not imagine doing in a warring state.
Let's be clear, every single tourist doesn't get to hang out with the mayor. Let's not undersell it.
But you can wave to him when he's on the balcony, from the main square. And what else can I say? It's just a good place to be, I always come here from my international work trips and so on. And this is the place where I feel very well. And despite my personal feelings, on the objective side, Lviv is a great city, as you told, Ra.
I mean, if anyone's been to Prague, if anyone's been to Krakow, then Lviv is absolutely a world-class cultural city. And if you love those two cities, then Lviv absolutely needs to be on your itinerary. So 3 great European cities which managed to preserve a lot of their architecture, a lot of their beauty through the Second World War. I mean, many cities weren't that lucky. But I'd say these are 3 gems of European architecture. Not so much Middle Ages in Lviv, but you've got sort of 18th century, 19th century, fantastic buildings, and a real buzz on the streets.
It's very, very busy. You remember yesterday we had a pre-meeting with our speakers, and one of them, Noel, came from Kharkiv. So when he was coming actually to our meeting, he told me I didn't really feel comfortable because it's so busy on the streets. It's like a downtown city life. When you have people shoulder to shoulder walking, minding their own business, and this actually shows that there is life, that there is dynamics, there is economy going, and this is very empowering and very inspiring at the same time.
Well, let's talk about why we're doing the event, and then we'll close out the live stream. But a couple of Ukrainians, your friends, have come to you. I've had a few people say this to me as well, and it's like they've said, be very careful, don't show Lviv in all the sort of freedom and vibrancy and normality. Okay, there are air raids, sirens, but generally there's an air of normality in the city. And I think some Ukrainians are worried and say, well, don't show part of Ukraine being normal and people enjoying themselves, because then they won't believe there's a war on. I don't believe that's the case. I think the most powerful thing we can do is to show what Ukrainians are fighting for. So we show them the life that exists here, And that is why people are on the front. They're protecting the way people are living their lives. They're protecting the language, the culture, the art, the galleries. They're protecting people's ability to just go out with their families and enjoy themselves. I actually think we should show that normal life and emphasize this is under risk. If Russia had occupied this city, not only would you not have these people on the streets, they'd be cowering in their basements in terror, they'd be arrested, they'd be tortured, and the fine buildings, many of them would be in rubble.
Well, you went too far, I think, here. There is no way Russians can occupy Lviv or any other major Ukrainian city. Even Kharkiv, which was on the front line, was standing strong. And, here in Lviv, everyone in their gene have anti-Russian position, half of my friends' grandparents were actually guerrilla fighters, even after World War II, all the way until the end of the 50s, resisting the newly Soviet regime on those territories. And in reflect to things that don't show Lviv that everything is fine and positive here, yeah, this is kind of still stretch of Soviet mentality, when people were kind of not too used to show that everything is good, because others would gossip on them. So everybody was trying to hide things, or to tell, oh, we are living very bad, or we are struggling. Even my old granny, who suffered a lot, she were born in the 30s, then she spent her childhood during World War II. My family actually had to move out of their heritage places and travel forcefully for hundreds of miles because of the population exchange during the World War II period. So when people were asking my granny, and I remember this as a child, how are you doing? How are the things? She were telling, we are living from struggle to struggle. So we are not living from challenge to challenge or from goal to goal. We are living from struggle to struggle. And I think now we already at the point that this is fading away, especially Lviv. Citizens of Lviv and the atmosphere here is absolutely positive, as you've seen. So we should show the positive side. We should show that Ukraine is standing strong. We should inspire by our own actions, but our examples, the rest of the world, and provide the perspective where it is going. Yeah, and this is definitely going towards the victory of Ukraine and towards the victory of the entire free world.
And this is the ability to enjoy yourself. This is the ability to do what you want with your life, educate yourself in the way you want. This is what people are fighting for. And they're not just fighting to survive, they're fighting for a high quality of life. And I think it's the proper thing to do to celebrate that. That's why we're running the event here. Your relatives, had to escape hardship, war, strife, revolution, persecution by Russians. Half of my family had to flee Vienna just before the Second World War in 1938 and 39. They had to flee persecution and the threat of death by a fascist regime. Quite unashamedly, we now see a new fascism, a Russian fascism emerging. It's not as efficient.
Russism. Russism, we call it.
It's not as efficient as German fascism. It doesn't have Hugo Boss uniforms, but nonetheless, it's another form of pernicious repression. In fact, it's even more brutish because of the kind of inefficiency and chaos that Russians inflict. Proklatya Rusnya, that's what everyone's fighting, and this is what this event is all about.
Exactly. So I think we can wrap up this intro.
Let's wrap up.
People are starting to come, and it's worth mentioning that exactly at 6 p.m. Eastern European time, Ukrainian time, which would be, I believe, noon Eastern Standard Time, right?
Eastern Standard Time is 2 o'clock in GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. Tune in, live stream. We'll have our Q&A of our headline speakers. You will know quite a few of them. We've got Brooks Newmark, a fabulous politician and running an incredible charity here. We've got John Sweeney. Many of you will be watching his daily war diary. We've got an incredible panel going live, 2 o'clock GMT. No, 4 o'clock. Sorry, 4 o'clock GMT London time, 6 o'clock Kiev time.
And I believe it's noon Eastern Coast time in the United States.
Possibly.
Yeah, possibly.
I'm not.
Okay.
Maths
Calculate
on
from
the
the
spot.
London time. 4 o'clock, 4 p.m. London time. So guys, see you around. It will be a busy day, and let's have fun. Yep.
Fantastic.